That was a great job by Jason. I'm not sure if he's still here, but prior to where I am now, I spent 7 years at Microsoft and 3 years on the Xbox team. So hearing about digital downloads and millennials is something that's near and dear to my heart. And didn't expect to see it on stage today, but it was good to hear that backstage. So for all those of you who are waiting for Keith Larizio to come out, who's a CRO at Chango, I'm sorry to disappoint you all, but you get me instead. Keith was called away at the last moment, so I'm filling in for him, thus the note, so I apologize in advance. Welcome to Chicago, everybody. I'm not a native of Chicago, but it's my adopted home. And if you ran into any grumpy people this morning, it's probably because the Blackhawks had a tough loss last night. But I think they'll get over it in Game 4 and start moving forward. Like they said, my name is Matt Federoff. I'm the VP of Strategic Sales for the combined Rubicon project Chango. Been going through that acquisition for the past 6 weeks or so, and I have to say, I've been in some sticky ones, but this one has been really, really smooth, so it's good to be involved in it. We were asked to come in today and present a little bit about a research study that we've done recently around programmatic, and specifically for this session, talk about our findings and our learnings around programmatic branding. So as I'm sure most of you are aware or know about, programmatic, the industry in general, really spawned from search. You know, how could we provide very actionable, very measurable, very specific campaign metrics to optimize against on the display side of the business as we had in search. You couple that with the ability to have such robust amounts of consumer data, both customers that you had already had and potential new customers. And that marriage really made a lot of sense for DR-focused digital campaigns to really drill in and nail that audience, whether they're showing some intent or you're just trying to re-engage somebody who came to your site, may have abandoned a shopping cart, may have viewed a few products and then left. You know, how do you really get them back and continue to engage with them? Well, the past 12 months, we've really seen an explosion on the rise of programmatic branding and using programmatic strategies and tactics to execute brand-building campaigns. Now, and there's a few reasons why. There's been a much more access to premium inventory nowadays than there ever was before, especially around video. We've also seen an insistence from marketers, so I thank many of you in this room, on a more and more transparency around media. The set it and forget it mindset, the opaque landscape and media. Marketers really push to say, no, that's not how we want this to run. We want to know where our message is going, we want to know where our brand is, and we want to be transparent in that as a partnership with you. So marketers did a really nice job helping push the industry in that direction. And then third, more access to native inventory, especially around mobile. You know, when I laugh when I hear people talk about native, some people talk about it as this new phenomenon in advertising. I would actually argue that it goes back to the 1930s when networks started running these daytime dramas. Detergent and soap companies decided that, you know what, this content makes a lot of sense for our brand, and they started heavily sponsoring these shows. Well, you know, fast forward, and we have transformed that drama on daytime to what's called a soap opera, and they've been running ever since. So the emergence, the closeness that a brand can fit with content that makes sense for that brand, you know, what can be called native, I think it's been around for a long time, and it really is an effective way to reach an audience. And then creative. So I mentioned video earlier. Larger player video sizes have really pushed programmatic, or the access to larger player video sizes have really pushed the industry towards programmatic. Dynamic creative. The ability to sequential message from one platform to another and track that user, all are pushing more and more branding dollars into programmatic. So back to the study, now that my programmatic and branding little diatribe's over. So the goal was to understand how marketers view consumer engagement in the age of programmatic branding. We asked 259 marketers in the US, Canada, and the UK what they thought about programmatic, and specifically to this session again, programmatic branding. 4 out of the 5 marketers said that they plan to increase their programmatic spending over the next year, which isn't a huge surprise. And marketers are willing to put more money against programmatic due to the efficiencies that they're able to reach through those channels. So let's dig in here. So what is the current state of programmatic branding? So people are using programmatic for branding purposes. Again, this has been a wildly successful vehicle for some people to help increase the brand awareness of their specific brands. So 64% of the people that we polled said yes, we are using programmatic branding, and we're using it effectively. And another 23% said they haven't, but they are planning to. And 90% of the people that we polled said that in 2016, they will increase their budgets against programmatic branding efforts. Brand awareness, engagement, perception, affinity, these are all the foundation of the cornerstones of any branding campaign, and that doesn't change when we flip the script to programmatic. Now, whether you're spending $6 million on a 30-second Super Bowl spot, or you're analyzing the results of a programmatic campaign, a programmatic branding campaign, these four things are going to be highlighted and be very, very important to the results of that overall campaign. As you can see, 79% build brand awareness. Extremely, extremely important when we looked at brand. And again, that doesn't stop when we look at programmatic. So just zooming in a little bit, our research points to an increased usage in not only programmatic, but in programmatic to achieve branding results. Marketers are reaching their consumers more effectively using fewer resources and again and again. So what does consumer engagement look like? When we look at consumer engagement, what does it mean in programmatic? How are marketers measuring the success of programmatic branding? Custom campaign KPIs, this could be viewability and frequency. Those are two of the main issues there. Use of specific metrics. Now, these metrics range anything from video completion rates to quality of site traffic. So are these branding efforts driving the right kind of traffic to my site? Now, again, that goes along what we spoke about a little bit earlier about the ways in which that more premium inventory being accessible via programmatic. The goal there, or the hope there, is to be able to drive more qualified traffic. So that's going to be looked at and analyzed pretty closely when we look at programmatic campaigns. Click-through rates and then multi-touch attribution falling last. So this is a sign that when we're looking at programmatic branding, multi-touch attribution, although attribution is extremely important for other types of campaigns, when it comes to branding, it doesn't really stack up against the rest. And the little shopping bags above the bars there. So what we're looking at there is that when we sucked out the retail-specific marketers that we spoke to, the results are in those shopping bags, which is interesting. Click-through rate takes the cake. Branding might not be, the ultimate goal of branding might not be an immediate click to buy, but in the retail industry, it's still extremely important. All right, so let's dig in a little bit on brand engagement for programmatic branding. And we found that viewability and frequency are number 1 and 2 when asked the question, which of the following have you used to measure brand engagement in programmatic campaigns? Now, and that means that makes a lot of sense as well. When we spoke earlier about what were those foundations, brand awareness, affinity, perception, what can help build those, or what can help increase or lift those metrics? And frequency and viewability are definitely 1 and 2. If the ad is not seen, it's hard to create brand awareness, how to increase brand awareness. And frequency plays an important part too, because there's the, if you can do a really good job of pissing somebody off if every time they go anywhere, that's all they're seeing is your ad, right? So there's a delicate balance of viewability and frequency, and that's extremely important to be able to balance that. And platform, it's interesting that platform made this list, because I feel like platform plays really well with viewability and frequency. So in this slide, platform is discussing the platform in which the ad is seen. So it's important to measure viewability and frequency across platform. And programmatic technologies provide the ability to do that, and provide the ability to do that effectively when you look at a multi-channel approach to your advertising and approach to programmatic. So in brand building, as the Internet of Things, if you will, becomes much more prominent, the platform and frequency viewability even more important. So if you're at a bus kiosk and you see an ad, and then we're able to track that person to their mobile device, and then you might see a sequential ad when you get to the elevator of your office building through the Captivate machine, and then when you get up into your office, maybe it's an online video, or maybe you're seeing your Facebook feed, and you can continue to have that conversation, continue to have that branding conversation with that client and take them through where they're at. So I went through that pretty quick and wanted to leave some time at the end for questions, but the study is available on your chairs. You have it as a seat drop there. So I encourage you to take a look at it, give it an overview. I'll be around the rest of the day if you have any questions and want to talk one-on-one, but thanks for dealing with the fill-in guy, and I hope this was helpful.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Matt right now? So in the back.
Thank you. What do you foresee happening in order to move budget away from publisher direct deals into programmatic?
That's a great question. So as I mentioned when I got up here, I worked for Microsoft for 7 years, And the evolution of the publisher-specific buys has really changed dramatically. I joined Chango in October. In the past few years, we at Microsoft saw this shift. We saw the insistence of our clients, both client direct and agencies, to move into more programmatic channels, to be able to use data-driven solutions to engage with and execute buys. And what this has forced publishers to do to a certain extent is to start partnering with programmatic supply companies, such as Rubicon Project, to make that inventory access to people on a programmatic basis. And it hasn't really disrupted yield too much for some publishers. It's been able to have them to optimize their site from a yield management standpoint pretty well. And what it's done for the industry is allow more direct access and more automation to that premium inventory. So I would say that's probably the main drivers of what's going on right now as far as premium into programmatic.
Great. Any other questions? Don't be shy. All right. I'd love to know, do you have any examples of brands that are doing this really well right now or still adopting?
Yeah, there's a lot of great examples. Here in Chicago, I think Sprint out of Digitas does a really good job of utilizing, they have a really good video strategy around what they're doing from a branding standpoint in programmatic, and they'll marry branding with a direct response. So they'll do video, and then they'll sequential message with display behind it, and to try to get some of that, re-engage that audience. So what could be start as a brand building objective kind of morphs into more of a direct response.
Great. Yeah, I think we'll see it catch on. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, we can wrap this session up. Thanks, Matt.
All right, thanks everybody.